George Best is famous for his skills as a dribbler.
And the best balls and the best boots and made them feel big.
They called him God, but the man now standing in bronze outside Elland Road was once told he was too small for English football. His statue stands tall outside the ground, arms raised high, caught forever in one perfect moment of joy. But the boy underneath that pose was once turned away by two big London clubs. Arsenal looked at him and said no. Chelsea said no too. Both clubs decided his small frame could not survive the rough grind of English football. He stood just 5 feet 5 inches tall. He weighed less than 10 stone. On paper, he looked like nothing special. So use the hype feature and give this video some hype, as we see how he proved them all wrong. While London clubs saw only a small boy, they missed the fire burning inside him. That fire would carry him across a small Scottish town, through a famous football club and into the history books forever. But first, we go back to where it all began. A place called Raploch. Raploch sat on the edge of Stirling, in the shadow of the old castle. It was a working-class part of town, tough and proud. William John Bremner was born there on December 9, 1942. His father worked as a storeman at a nearby army barracks, keeping supplies in order for the Ministry of Defense. Life in Raploch was simple and hard, and it built strong people. Near his home stood Shell Park, a rough patch of ground between the houses and the barracks. Young Billy played football there for hours, often against boys much older and much bigger than him. Those games taught him to think fast and move fast. They taught him to fight for every ball. He went to St. Mary's Catholic Primary School, then on to St. Modan's High School. Even as a boy, his talent stood out. By the age of 13, he had already been picked for Gowan Hill United's under-21 side, playing against grown men while still just a child himself. He had close control, sharp passing, and a work rate that never seemed to fade. But scouts in those days cared about size above almost everything else. Billy stood only 5 feet 5 inches tall. He weighed under 10 stone. When he traveled south for trials, Arsenal turned him away. Chelsea turned him away too. Both clubs feared his small body would break under the weight of English football. They measured his height. They measured his weight. What they never measured was his mind, his courage, or his hunger to prove them wrong. Leeds United saw something different. The club was managed by Frank Taylor and was struggling near the bottom of the second division. But Taylor and his staff noticed what London had missed. They saw a boy with sharp awareness, endless stamina, and a burning will to win. On the 12th of December, 1959, only 3 days after turning 17, Billy signed as a professional footballer for Leeds United. Just 6 weeks later, on January 23, 1960, he made his first team debut. Leeds traveled to Stamford Bridge and beat Chelsea, the very club that had once rejected him, by 3-1. Billy played that day at outside right, a position built for speed rather than his true strengths. Standing near him on the pitch was a 32-year-old teammate named Don Revie. Revie was nearly twice Billy's age, a wise old head guiding a raw 17-year-old through his first taste of senior football. That day began a bond between the two men that would shape the future of the entire club. Still, life in Leeds was not easy for young Billy. Far from home, far from his family, and far from everything familiar, he struggled badly with homesickness through his first 18 months at the club. Again and again, he asked to go back to Scotland. In 1961, Hibernian offered Leeds £25,000 to bring him home. It was a serious offer, and Billy wanted the move. But Don Revie said no. He believed in the boy more than the boy believed in himself, and he refused to let him go. That single decision would change the course of Leeds United forever. Now it is time to clear up the true story behind this video's title, because Leeds never paid £25,000 to sign Billy Bremner. He arrived as an unknown teenager, with no transfer fee attached to his name at all. Instead, that number followed him quietly through his whole career, popping up again and again at the biggest turning points. The first time came just after his debut, when Leeds sold winger Chris Crowe to Blackburn Rovers for £25,000. That sale eased the club's money troubles and opened a permanent place in the team for Billy. The second time came when Hibernian tried to buy him for that same amount, only for Don Revie to turn the offer down flat. The third time came in 1962, when Leeds themselves spent a club record of £25,000 to sign the Scottish captain Bobby Collins from Everton. Collins became one of the most important mentors of Billy's career. teaching him how to lead and how to win. The fourth time came in 1963, when a frustrated young Billy handed in a transfer request of his own to stop any club from taking him away. Revie placed a valuation of more than £25,000 on his own player, scaring off potential buyers. The fifth and final time came many years later, when Leeds eventually sold Billy himself for exactly £25,000. So this was never one simple transfer fee. It was a number that shadowed his whole Leeds story, showing up as a sale, a rejected bid, a signing, a shield, and finally a farewell. The true gamble was never about one payment. It was about a club that kept choosing to protect, trust, and believe in a player the rest of England had thrown away. In March of 1961, Don Revie became player-manager of Leeds United. The club had very little money and no clear plan on the pitch. Revie decided to throw out the old rigid style of football that most English teams still used. In its place, he built a team based on pressing hard, moving smart, and switching the ball quickly from defense to attack. To make this new plan work, he needed to find Billy's true position. As an outside right, Billy had struggled. He simply did not have the blistering pace that most wingers relied on, and it often left him isolated and quiet out on the touchline. Then, in September of 1962, misfortune opened a door. Midfielder Eric Smith broke his leg badly during a match against Chelsea. With Smith out, Revie tried something new. He moved Billy into the center of midfield for a friendly match against the Italian club Roma. It changed everything. In the middle of the pitch, Billy could finally show what he truly was. He ran from box to box without ever seeming to tire. He hunted down the ball, won it back, and moved it forward in an instant. Soon Revie built his midfield fully around this idea. In 1963, Leeds signed Johnny Giles from Manchester United for £33,000. Giles became the calm passer, spraying the ball around the pitch with vision and care. Billy became the engine beside him, the one chasing, pressing, tackling, and always arriving late in the box to strike. Behind them stood Jack Charlton and Norman Hunter, a tough defensive wall that gave the midfield freedom to attack. Coach Les Cocker pushed the whole squad through brutal fitness training, and it paid off. Leeds became one of the fittest teams in the entire league. Billy could press for 90 minutes without slowing down, and that endless energy became the heartbeat of the whole team. Then, in October of 1965, Captain Bobby Collins suffered a serious knee injury against Torino. Don Revie made his decision. At only 22 years old, Billy Bremner was handed the captain's armband of Leeds United. What followed was the greatest era in the club's history. In the 1963-64 season, Leeds won the Division II title and returned to the top flight. Just a few years later, in the 1967-68 season, they beat Arsenal to win the League Cup, the club's very first trophy at Wembley. That same season, Leeds also lifted the Intercities Fairs Cup, beating the Hungarian side Ferencváros to claim their first ever European trophy. The following year brought something even bigger. In the 1968-69 season, Leeds were crowned champions of Division I, setting a new record with 67 points and losing only 2 matches across the entire 42-game season. It remains one of the most dominant title wins English football has ever seen. In 1970, Billy was named Footballer of the Year by the Football Writers Association, a reward for his years of relentless leadership. The next European triumph came in the 1970-71 season, when Leeds beat the great Italian side Juventus in the Fairs Cup final, winning on the away goals rule after a thrilling 3-3 draw. In 1972, Leeds beat Arsenal once again, this time to win the FA Cup in its centenary final. Then, in the 1973-74 season, Leeds won the Division I title once more, this time starting the campaign with an astonishing 29-match unbeaten run. Through every single one of these triumphs, Billy stood at the very center, driving his team forward with pure will. He built a reputation as a player for the biggest moments, scoring winning goals in 4 different major cup semifinals. By the end of his Leeds career, he had made 772 appearances and scored 115 goals, including 587 league games and 90 league goals. On the international stage, he earned 54 caps for Scotland and scored 3 goals, captaining his country to a famous 3-2 win over the reigning world champions England at Wembley in 1967. In 1974, he led Scotland through the World Cup in West Germany without losing a single match, only to be eliminated on goal difference. Leeds under Don Revie were not only skilled, they were also fierce, and this earned the team a rougher nickname across English football, Dirty Leeds. The newspaper, the Sunday Times, once described Billy as 10 stone of barbed wire, and no image captured that fire better than one taken in August of 1966. During a match against Tottenham Hotspur, Billy went in hard on Dave Mackay's left leg. The same leg Mackay had already broken twice in serious injuries. Mackay reacted instantly, grabbing Billy by the shirt collar with a clenched fist raised. A photographer named Monte Fresco caught the exact moment on camera, and it became one of the most famous football photographs ever taken. That single image fixed Billy's reputation forever as a man who would never back down from anyone. 8 years later, in August of 1974, another famous flashpoint arrived. Leeds faced Liverpool in the Charity Shield at Wembley, their very first match after Don Revie had left to manage England. Billy and Liverpool's Kevin Keegan clashed again and again through the match, trading rough fouls until tempers finally broke. In the 60th minute, after a late challenge from Billy, the two men exchanged punches on the pitch. Both were sent off, an almost unheard-of moment for this fixture. As they walked away, both men tore off their shirts and threw them down in anger. The whole nation watched it live on TV, and heavy fines and bans followed for both captains. His fire could sometimes cross a line, and these moments are part of his story too. But that same refusal to be pushed around was also what made him such a powerful leader, driving his team forward through the hardest matches of all. In July of 1974, Don Revie left Leeds to become manager of the England national team. In his place, the club appointed Brian Clough, a manager who had spent years publicly criticizing Revie's Leeds for the way they played. On his very first day, Clough shocked the senior players. He told Billy, Johnny Giles, and Norman Hunter that they should throw their medals in the bin because he believed they had won them unfairly. It was the wrong thing to say to a dressing room built entirely on trust and loyalty. Billy and the senior squad rejected Clough from that moment on, and any hope of real leadership quickly fell apart. Clough tried to change the tactics that had brought years of success, but the damage inside the dressing room could not be repaired. After only 44 days in charge, the Leeds board removed him from his job. Revie had built Leeds around shared sacrifice, trust, and Billy's own leadership. Clough had walked straight into that identity and tried to tear it down, and Leeds simply would not allow it. The most painful match of Billy's career came on the 28th of May, 1975, in the European Cup final against Bayern Munich. The match was played at the Parc des Princes in Paris, with Jimmy Armfield now in charge of the team. Leeds controlled long stretches of the game against the reigning European champions. Early on, Franz Beckenbauer made a challenge on Alan Clark inside the penalty area, but the referee waved away Leeds' appeal for a penalty. Then, in the 62nd minute, the game reached its turning point. A cross came into the Bayern box. Billy made the smallest touch on the ball, and it fell to Peter Lorimer, who smashed it into the net. Leeds began to celebrate, but Beckenbauer rushed over to argue with the referee, claiming Billy had been offside. The referee agreed, and the goal was ruled out. Evidence from the match suggests Billy was not blocking the goalkeeper's view or his movement at all, yet the decision stood. Shaken by the moment, Leeds were caught out twice on the counterattack. Franz Roth scored in the 71st minute, and Gerd Müller added a second in the 81st. Bayern Munich won the match 2-0. Billy later reflected honestly on the defeat, admitting that Leeds had been well in control of the game but were caught out by a couple of sucker punches when it mattered most. It remains one of the most controversial nights in the club's long history. On the 23rd of September, 1976, after 17 remarkable years at Elland Road, Billy Bremner left Leeds United. True to the number that had followed him his whole career, he moved to Hull City for a fee of £25,000. On his very first appearance for his new club, Billy scored the winning goal against Nottingham Forest, managed at the time by his old rival, Brian Clough. After a short playing spell at Doncaster Rovers, Billy stepped into management, taking charge of Doncaster from 1978 to 1985, and guiding the club to 2 separate promotions out of Division 4. Then, in October of 1985, Leeds United came calling once again, and Billy returned home as manager. He worked hard to rebuild the fitness and work ethic that had once defined the Revie years. In the 1986-87 season, he led Leeds to the semi-final of the FA Cup only to fall to Coventry City, and also guided the club to the Division II playoff final, where they were beaten by Charlton Athletic in a replay. He left his managerial role in September of 1988 without fully restoring the club's old glory, but his return had never really been about trophies. It was about bringing Leeds back to its true identity when the club needed it most. On December 7, 1997, just 2 days short of his 55th birthday, Billy Bremner died suddenly of a heart attack at his home in Doncaster. The news brought tributes from every corner of British football. At his funeral, old teammates from the Revie era carried his coffin, including Jack Charlton, Johnny Giles, Norman Hunter, Alan Clark, and Peter Lorimer. Standing among them was Kevin Keegan, the very man he had once clashed with so fiercely on the pitch, now there to honor him one final time. Outside Elland Road stands the bronze statue that opened this story. Billy frozen forever in his famous pose, arms raised high in celebration. Back home in Raploch, a stone memorial along the River Forth honors the boy who once played on rough ground and grew into a legend. In 2004, he was inducted into the National Football Hall of Fame, and in an official vote among the club's own supporters, Billy Bremner was named Leeds United's greatest player of all time. To this day, they still call him King Billy. So remember this: £25,000 followed him his whole career, in offers, in sales, in signings, and in one final farewell. But no fee, however large, could ever measure what Billy Bremner truly became to Leeds United. He was the small boy nobody wanted, who turned into the giant heart of a football club forever.